We got the usual suspects. I'd like to call this meeting to order for the Legal and Finance Committee for the City of Rapid City on March 2nd at 12:30 p.m. First up is roll call and determination of quorum.
Drew?
Here.
Nordstrom?
Here.
Weifenbach?
Here.
Solomon?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Adoption of the agenda is next. Moved by Solomon, second by Weifenbach. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Adoption is approved. General public comment, a time for members of the public to discuss or express concerns to the council on any issue not on the agenda. Action will not be taken at the meeting on any issue not on the agenda except by placement on the agenda by unanimous vote of the council members present. I have no slips, so general public comment is now closed unless anyone out there would like to speak. Miss anybody? Bill Evans, you want to speak? Councilman Evans is here today in the audience. Next up is consent items 1 through 16. Public comment is open. I have no slips on that. Public comment is now closed. And now we go to the seated members to see if they'd like to remove an item. Chair recognizes Ron Weifenbach.
Madam Chair, item number 3.
Item number 3.
Madam Chair,
Oh, excuse me, Jason.
can we kind of go through them by categories and make sure that department heads kind of give us a summary of their items?
Good reminder.
Is that all right?
That's a good reminder, yes. Yeah, let's do that. So do you want to take them, you want to do them as individuals, or do you want to take them as categories?
Can I do by category? So we have human resources, obviously the director, fire department, finance, parks,
Okay.
community development. I think that would be helpful, and then we can ask follow-up questions under those items, if that's all right with the rest of
Well,
the group.
are you talking about the items removed or just all the items in general?
I just don't think we have to remove any items unless we want to have further discussion on it.
So you want to discuss all the consent items, is what you're saying?
Well, if we have questions, but at least we get an overview from the department heads.
Okay.
And then we can have follow-up questions if needed.
Well, maybe I don't want to do that. Just in that kind of mood
The
today.
chair.
Okay. All right. So I guess we'll just have to approve the ones that we're not going to be discussing. Approve minutes for February 16th? Or do we just consider those all? I've not ever done this way before, so.
I think that's fine. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Okay, and a second? Second by Nordstrom, motion by Solomon. All in favor? The minutes from February 16th are approved. We go to the mayor's items. That's confirming the appointments of Laura Jones and Garth Wadsworth to the Parking Advisory Board. Do we have anybody from the mayor's office that would like to talk about this?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
if I might, the mayor did put these names out for the Parking Advisory Board's consideration. They were very pleased to get both of these appointed to the board, so we would request that you support the decision. Staff certainly has given their support as well.
I do have a question to, let's see here, Director Fisher, sorry. So Laura Jones and Garth Wadsworth, they've been put through a vetting process of some kind. Do you know these people?
I do. They both are associated with Elevate. They are very involved in the development of the city, and more importantly, they sit on other boards in the downtown area, so they're aware of that conversation, and those are the types of voices we need on the advisory board.
Yeah, you know, I am so pleased with the way our parking situation has come out. You know, I mean, I certainly have no problem with using the machines, and, you know, that was a complaint at first. It was too expensive, you know, but there are times no one can find a parking place downtown, and certainly in the summertime, we're bringing in the kind of income we need to maintain those parking structures, and also our meter attendance, and that was something that concerned me when I was first elected, that we weren't even making enough money off of our parking fines to pay for the attendance. So it was a good move, and yes, of course, I will approve this. Do we have a motion to approve? Oh, we did? Okay, thank you. All in favor? Aye. All those opposed? And the motion is carried. Next up is Human Resources. We did have this one pulled. Adoption of the updated non-union guide and employee handbook continued from 1/12/2022, 2/02/2022, and 2/16/2022 legal and finance meetings. And I believe Jason pulled this one, so I go to Jason Solomon.
Madam Chair, it was Ron Weifenbach, but should we allow Mr. Strout to give an overview, and then Mr. Weifenbach and the rest of us can ask questions from there?
Yes, please go ahead, Mr. Strout.
Okay, thank you. What you have in front of you is some proposed changes to the non-union guide and then some formalization of our employee handbook. And I know this has been in front of you a couple of different times. There are a number of changes to the non-union guide that were being proposed, and it seems the reason we keep continuing this is the retirement insurance benefit changes. And so what I would like to ask of this committee is that we approve all of the other changes except for those retirement insurance benefits. We leave those as is because, as we all know, we're going to have a larger discussion about retiree health insurance in the next coming weeks and months. And so the rest of these changes are really well received by our employees, that we're making some shifts to try to be more nimble with some of our working shortages and our hiring. And so we're trying to make some changes to those to make them a little more employee friendly. And so besides the retiree ones, the rest of them I think could be approved, and I think our employees would receive them well. In the handbook, what we did is we just put a bunch of mishmashed resolutions and mayoral declarations and things like that into a policy form. So we didn't change anything, we just made it easier to read for our employees. For example, when it became illegal to smoke in city-owned buildings and vehicles, that was just a email from Mayor Shaw, just put in a binder for our employees, and that's very difficult for them to read. So we just took the rule and put it in rule form. So there's really nothing controversial or out of bounds about the employee handbook. So that's what we're here to talk about today.
So to be clear, the mishmash was before you redid it.
Correct, absolutely. Yep, we took the mishmashed different ways we created policies over the years and we put them into a readable employee handbook format. Excuse me.
I certainly can commiserate with you, as we have a same situation going on right now with our council bylaws and our policies and procedures. They're kind of a mishmash right now and in desperate need of improvement. So yeah, I certainly understand how that happens. I could support this. Now I'll recognize Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to move to approve this with, but I want two insertions. Number one, I want to change the healthcare retirement to grandfather in for the rest of the duration. Anybody who has 15 years in service, that they'll get what they were promised to get. Then the second one I want to do is make it, I don't know how we do this, make it that to fire any non-union employee that they need to have council approval. So that would be my two insertions.
I would
Madam
like
Chair.
to refer to Joel, if you would please say. Okay. He's made a motion. Do we have a second? No, okay. We'll go to City Attorney Joel Lending.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You know, at this point, there seems to be a perception that this changes our current retiree health care, and it doesn't. But as the HR director indicated, we're going to have to probably have some discussions with the healthcare committee, with the unions, with everyone else. And, you know, the motion that was just made isn't even consistent with what we've negotiated with the AFSCME. So,
Madam Chair, point of order, because there's no second, so we're talking about something hypothetical. I'm willing to move on.
I'm just saying that on the retiree, we need to have that discussion, but I just want to be clear, there is no change in this to our current retiree health benefits. And any discussion of change is going to have to be had with the employees, and then you are going to have to approve it. But this is not a change. It is just, frankly, the language that seems to be concerning everybody is just clarification of what the rule already was. It just was spelling it out to put it on notice, but I understand now in hindsight why it caused some confusion. I'd be happy to talk to you about it in more detail, But I don't think right now, you're not making any changes by approving this, even with the language to the retiree, non-union retiree. I haven't heard, as far as the second issue, that's the first I've heard of that. So there might be some issues with that as far as infringing on the mayor's ability to remove people. And there's some Attorney General opinions and case law that might be inconsistent, and I would ask for some time to research that before we would include anything like that in it. Because anyway.
Well, I asked for your help on this, Joel, so thank you for that. It does clarify at least the second part of it for me. Chair recognizes Jason Solomon.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. First, I will make a motion to send this to council without recommendation. Second motion. And may I retain the floor just
Yes,
to
you may.
explain? I think the reason I'm doing that is to keep it off the consent calendar so that we can continue to have, obviously, Ron's thrown a couple things out there. Director Landine has shared some information. I did read through it. I think my assessment was we kind of did leave out a lot of the healthcare things, and that was, I think the change I saw was that any changes to our retiree healthcare plan would be made by the healthcare committee or recommended by the healthcare committee. So I think that was one of the changes that I saw. But my main reason for wanting to keep it off of the consent calendar, make sure that it's on non-consent, is to make sure that the council and the public, as well as our employees, have an opportunity to review that, make sure they provide any feedback. But I appreciate you trying to put all this together, and hopefully by Monday night we can come up with something clear. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I understand some of the concerns, but this conversation keeps eluding and going on and on and on, and we're not getting an answer to the people that are sitting out there that are working for the city that have the propensity to lose this. It's not like this just happened today. So to keep kicking this can down the road, tell my colleagues, you run the risk of losing institutional knowledge because these people, morale, everything is getting to them. In a time of, we're coming out of COVID stuff, we're coming out of all this stuff, and we're sending the wrong message. I want to send the right message, and I want the employees here to understand that we're here to work with them, and we're not going to keep kicking this can down the road. And as far as I am, I'm going to try to stop that from happening. That's why I'm trying to bring solutions to the table. To keep saying that we're going to keep talking and talking and talking and get nothing done does these people no good, because they go to bed at night wondering if this benefit is going to go away or if it's going to stay. It's not fair to them. It doesn't concern me. It doesn't, other than the fact that, we're in a situation of recruiting people is tougher than it has been in the past. One of the things that people look at is, you're going to make me a promise, you're going to take it away. Well, here you have a chance to secure that piece of it at least. And I have no interest in kicking this down the road. That's why I'm heading down this road I'm heading down. Thank you, and I appreciate it, Madam Chair.
All right, Chair recognizes Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm okay with the motion to send this to full council. I have spoken to several employees on the non-union side, not all of them, but a majority of them that I've sent the information to, and they are very comfortable with the proposal that's in front of us. Now, there may be some exceptions to the rule on this, but the ones that I've been speaking to are okay with this, so they would like to see something, some kind of action taking place. And then the, as been described earlier, is that the retiree health insurance premium is going to be discussed later, and we've also got that on our agenda for Health Insurance Committee. And I'm the liaison to that committee as well. That will be part of that discussion, and then there will be other discussions along this same line of thought. So if we can get this through and so that the employees can know what they're coming up with and have to see in their, get the opportunity to see in their handbook, I think this will be a good proposal, but I just don't want to delay it any longer. We've got to move forward. Thank you.
I'm going to take a point of privilege here and ask Richie a couple of questions, since he does seem to know this and is a former city employee. Your health committee is reviewing this the health insurance of employees?
Yeah, it's part of the, it's a portion of it, but as a working session with the rest of the council members, they, I believe, I'll look to Mr. Strout to correct me on the language on this, but it will not, it doesn't have a major effect on the health insurance as would be amended. So what they're looking at is to primarily grandfather in the retirees, which is part of the health insurance.
When did they meet again? When did they meet? When could we have a recommendation from them?
I think it's, what, 2 more months we got on
No,
just
we'll
the health insurance side, or?
We'll meet next month.
Next
It's
month?
usually about the third Wednesday of the month, or excuse me, March. We're in March, I
Yeah,
forgot.
we are in
This
March,
month.
yep.
Yes,
Yep. Oh,
so,
so it's this month, yeah.
yeah, we will have a health committee meeting. I think, just to clarify, we understand that if we need to make a change, that there needs to be a grandfather group. And we had talked about this morning at our department director group. We know we need to visit with our union partners to see what that looks like and see what's acceptable to their members. And so, to Councilman Weifenbach, we don't want to continue this. We want to get this done, but we have to bring everybody together and have those conversations. And I want to do it this month. I think we can really get this done because it's in everybody's interest to figure out this list and then move forward. And so, yeah, we're talking about it at a committee level because of the changes that we're going to need to continue to make to our health insurance. So this is just, like Richie said, a very small part of a big conversation we're having about continuing to be able to offer affordable health insurance to our employees.
Chair recognizes Jason Solomon.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I think just for the point of clarity for everybody, the health insurance portion of this, primarily, that discussion is separate from this handbook, correct?
Yes.
Initially, you did have some of those items in there. This time around, according to what I've seen, that's separate, and we will deal with that separately. This is some other language
Yeah.
regarding.
This is regarding vacation accrual, sick leave accrual, access to our short-term disability. Those are the issues that we're ready to move on and then have that separate discussion, soon about the health care.
Obviously, if this was directing the issue at hand, which is the retiree health care, which we're kind of alluding to.
Right.
That's a whole different part of this discussion, but you basically have separated them out so that one is not in the handbook just yet, if there is anything.
And no, that was my original proposal, is that we accept all of the changes in that document that I gave you, except for the retiree health insurance. Leave that as it currently is, and then we'll have a separate conversation, and if it needs to change, then we change it at that time. So
Right.
all of the other changes can move forward, but we do need to set this one aside and have just a focused conversation on health insurance.
And I think that's important for us to understand that they are kind of two separate conversations. Eventually, they'll become one. But what you did was you separated that out, said leave it for now. Instead, deal with bereavement leave and paid time off and some of the other things that I saw in there. I think that's important for clarity, or else we will get hung up on this issue.
Right.
That does need serious discussion, and I think a lot of the council want to make sure that our employees are taken care of. We have great people that work for the city. We want to encourage the best talent to work for the city.
Absolutely.
It's the best bang for the taxpayer buck is when you have happy and productive employees. When you have happy and productive employees, your customer service goes up and everybody wins.
Right.
So because that issue is separate, I think I'm okay, moving forward, at least to put it out for Monday night, make sure there's nothing in there that we aren't seeing that maybe average folks might see who work for the city. So thanks. Just wanted to make sure we clarify this.
I know.
I yield.
Absolutely.
Because this is probably going to Monday night without recommendation, it seems like talking about this will not resolve much today, but since it seems to be a passionate item for Ron Weifenbach, I will allow one more comment by Ron.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to make sure that we understand, and maybe I should make a substitute motion to separate those two items, because the handbook right now says that they can change the pay at any given time, and that's the point of contention. So I think maybe just moving it to the council without recommendation, we'll be there Monday, we can.
Slice it up there.
Yep, so I'm ready to go forward, but just don't want anybody to leave here to think that they are two separate items. They're not. They're one in the handbook. I think Nick is suggesting that we separate them, but going to council without recommendation works the same, as long as we understand that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Agreed, and so we have a motion by Solomon and a second by Weifenbach to go to council without recommendation. All in favor? And all opposed. Motion passes unanimously. Go to the fire department now. Authorize staff to apply and accept if awarded a fire prevention and safety grant in the amount of $97,123. And then the next item up is for a wellness grant in the amount of $17,000. So we go to Chief Culberson.
Good afternoon. Mine should take a little less time. The first one is to apply for a grant for heat limiting cooktops in all the Pennington, or half of the Pennington County Housing and Redevelopment buildings. The heat limiting cooktop is just an addition, so it's a plug and play type cooktop that it goes in their existing stoves that limits the heat so you don't have fire and or smoke. We are applying for the grant because we're the agency that has jurisdiction in this area, and those buildings are within the confines of the city of Rapid City, and we respond to every single one of those calls. So it's in an effort to protect our most vulnerable. A lot of those are elderly or have or low income. So and we do a fair number of cooking type fires in those buildings. So this is an effort to replace those cooktops to decrease some of our call volume there for non-essential alarms. The match is a 5% match, and it's matching in kind, which we will do, and then Pennington County Housing with their folks that work there will also help install those pieces of the cooktop. And so I can answer the question for Councilman Solomon. No, there's no other.
Well, Richie is in the queue first.
Well,
so-
I just know he's going to ask the question, so I'm reading Councilman Solomon's mind.
Oh, okay, now we've
there's-
got that going on here. so-
There's no other
mind,
requirements
I wa-
other than the 5% match. We don't have anything else from the federal government that we have to worry about. So other than that 5% match, which it's in kind, so it doesn't come out of cash, we're already doing that. Monica Colby runs our fire and life safety. She's a specialist up there, and we have a couple volunteers that help with us. So
People see right through you, Jason. I just.
just knew it was coming. Weird.
Okay.
Yeah, I wish.
All right, we're going to go to Richie Nordstrom. Who- Actually, I can't read his mind, and I'm guessing the fire chief can't either, so go ahead, Richie.
I would be getting nervous if you could read my mind, so.
I don't want
if- That's good. If it's all right, I'll make a motion to approve both of these items and retain the floor if I get a second. Okay.
Second by Weifenbach, sorry, and a first by Nordstrom. Go ahead, Richie, knock it
you.
out.
The, just a point of information here, I've heard several stories about some of the reasons why we need these safety devices. It's interesting how the creative mind works with a lot of people that don't know how to operate cooktop stoves.
Yeah.
And all the incidents that the fire department has to address on it. So, as Chief Culberson pointed out, I was curious about who was going to be monitoring the or tracking these grants and how that's taken care of. And with Monica Colby taking care of that, I don't see any issues there at all. I like her work, so thank you, Chief. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah, that one's been 2 years in the making. This one has.
Yes.
So, just real quick on the second one, mental health is in the forefront of our first responders. And this is a grant to bring in a gentleman or an instructor into the department to teach up to 25 people on peer support, which is a mental health program that we have within our department, and so does the police department, where you have your peers are looking out for one another, and to give some of those folks the training and the tools to be able to help their fellow coworkers through immediate mental health issues. and then be able to direct them to where most appropriate. But this would be just to bring somebody in and to teach the class for up to 25 people.
One more thought, if I may do a little quick follow-up. Chief Culberson, if you could put together a one-page bullet points for me on that mental health part of it, just a short brief, because as most people know, that I'm going to D.C. next week, and I would like to share that information with our congressional delegation. Thank you.
Well, we do have a first and a second to approve these. Just a comment on my part on the police, fire, and the departments here in general. I am always impressed by the amount of money that you apply for in grants. The time put into grants is a substantial. If you're going to write a good grant, it takes a long time. As a fundraiser, I know this, and I am just always impressed at the police, fire, other departments, historical preservation, and parks. They're always going for those grants to help stretch our dollars, and they're to be applauded for that. So we have a motion to approve both of these, and all in favor? Aye. Those opposed, and 4 and 5 pass. Finance Department, I think this is pretty upfront, so Pauline?
Six.
Okay. Approval moved by Weifenbach, second by Nordstrom. All in favor? Aye. Motion approved. 7 was authorize mayor and finance director to sign the 2022 amendment to the golf course food and beverage concession agreement between the City of Rapid City and the Platinum Restaurant Food Group Incorporated.
Move approval?
I have a question for Parks and Rec, please. Is this, let's see here. Is this just concessions for all the different areas that we have? Is this the people that do this? Does this include the Marco's Pizza, or is this?
Actually, yes. This is an amendment to the current agreement we have with Marco's Pizza. And in this amendment, the service of the beverage cart that goes out onto the course to provide beverages and snack items to the golfers, that would be now shifting to the city staff to provide that rather than Marco's providing that. And this is a joint agreement between the two parties that this is a better deal for both sides. So it's a win-win for both Marco's and for the city.
So we have city staff that's available to go do this. I mean, I think that's terrific, but.
Yeah, it's it's a seasonal position, so it would be a seasonal individual that would operate the beverage cart, and their salary would be more than paid for by the sale of the items that they sell on the course.
Well, okay. Do we have a motion to approve this? Yep. We did. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
And so that's approved. And of course, we'll go back to that on Monday night. On number 8 is authorize mayor and finance director to sign a resolution to enter into the use of the agreement with the Harney League Sports. I think I asked you some questions about this last time, and it was made very clear to me. There's so many different groups. I have a hard time keeping track of them. It's true. So do I have a motion to approve?
Move approval? Second.
Move approval by Weifenbach, second by Solomon. All in favor?
Aye.
Then that is approved. Next, Legal and Finance, approve resolution number 2022-023, a resolution of intent to enter into a lease with the Rapid City Youth Baseball. I guess that's us.
Second.
Move to approve by Solomon, second by Weifenbach. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. Now we go to Community Development with Director Fisher. Number 10, do you have anything in here you'd like to talk about in particular, since we didn't really pull anything out of here, but if you'd like to elucidate on any of these, I'd like to hear, what you have to say about CBD or any of those other things that we're approaching here.
Madam Chair, we are here to stand for questions. The first 3 items are just CDBG. There's 2 set plans that have to come before you. The item 13 on the agenda is just a correction to the minutes, and then item 14 is being continued to your March 30th Legal and Finance Committee meeting. I will say that Ellen Solano with the Community Investment Committee And of course, Michelle Schulke from our Community Investment Program is here today. If you should have any questions on the request set forth in item number 10.
Well, it looks like Jason Solomon has a question about something, so we'll go ahead and accept that. Jason, go ahead.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. I think it'd just be good to hear from Michelle about these recommendations and why we thought they were the ones the committee went with. So, Michelle, would you mind giving a summary for us?
Not at all, thank you. Number 10 is the approval of preliminary funding recommendations for fiscal year 2022. If you do remember, there was final approval for the amount of $55,337 for BMS and final approval for $51,250 to Wavy, as well as $100,000 for planning and admin. There was deferred action for funding related to Common Bond Communities and Pennington County Housing and Redevelopment Commission. This particular agenda item is for preliminary recommendation of $200,000 to Common Bond Communities and $0 to Pennington County Housing for reasons of an incomplete application.
Michelle, for everybody's benefit, would you briefly describe what Common Bond Communities does and why they are being recommended for funding?
Of course. Common Bond Communities is an entity that either builds, primarily builds, but sometimes renovates for affordable housing projects. This particular project would be located on the corner of La Crosse and Omaha. It's a 42-unit structure, but most importantly, it's affordable housing paired with services. This is their first project in Rapid City. They do intend to vet other project sites. So this is a nonprofit organization that you probably will be more and more familiar with as time goes on. But again, this is their first project, and this is the first amount of CDBG money that would be awarded to this project for 2022. The council did approve $347,000 in a mid-year cycle of FY21 money, and so this is a significant investment in affordable housing.
Okay. Looks like other colleagues may have some questions, so I yield for now.
Oh, yeah, we got him coming in. Chair recognizes Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Working with Common Bond, correct me, Michelle, if I'm in error here, is we've been working with them for about 2 years now. Is that? It's about the first time they came into town to kind of look around was about 2 years ago.
You know, I think it was closer to 3.5 years.
3.5, okay.
When they first came to town for a morning fill-up discussion. And from that, it evolved into potential breaking into the Rapid City market. And so it probably has been closer to 3.5 years.
That was a good discussion. I really appreciated it. I didn't have a chance to visit with them afterwards, but it was a great conversation. And then, would you mind, this is news to me, but would you mind sharing your title now? For me, it's a new title, but could you share your title, job title?
Of course. Our division was previously the Community Development Block Grant Program Division, which was a mouthful when we answered the phones. The division is now the Community Enrichment Division, as which I am the Community Enrichment Division Manager. The main reason for that division name change is that we could encompass other programs, other projects beyond the CDBG program in the future.
I'm already working on the acronym, so thank you. I appreciate it.
Chair recognizes Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Michelle, you mentioned that Pennington County Housing was deferred because of a incomplete application. Did they just have enough funds that they didn't need to apply, do you know, or you just didn't get a complete application? Can you expand?
I can. The initial process was a letter of interest, which we received from Pennington County Housing. They were invited to apply and did fill out an incomplete application. We did request the supplemental information and did not receive that information, at which point we were unable to provide a recommendation for funding.
Thank you.
And, excuse me, I have a little question here too, Michelle. When you reference services, when you were talking about this building down on La Crosse, what kind of services exactly are you talking about there?
Certainly Common Bond Communities could describe all of the different types of services they provide, probably better, but from my understanding, it's based on the residents' needs. For example, they do have properties that are primarily for veterans. And so in that case, the services are targeted towards that population. But for some examples that we might see are homework assistance, mentoring for young children, mental health services. At this point, it really does depend on the needs of the community and the programs that they can fulfill. They also look at the programs that are already in the community, and obviously they don't want to duplicate services. So the concept is also some referral to local organizations that are fulfilling those needs. It's a little fluid at this point.
They'll oversee that. That the city's out of it at that point, or so they oversee those homework or young child education, whatever it is, services.
At this point, it is not city-funded services. Common Bond Communities administers and pays for their services. Of course, an investment up front does help with overall deferred expenses, but there will not be, at this point, that I'm aware, any city money going to those services.
Thank you. Jason Solomon?
Madam Chair, it's okay if we take items 10 through 14 and do a motion on all
I agree,
items?
yes.
So I'll make a motion to approve items 10 through 14.
A motion by Solomon, second by Nordstrom. All in favor? Okay, we're past that. City Attorney's Office, accept property tax ID donated by Philip Wagner and Yvonne Wagner, and authorize the mayor and finance director to sign all documentation related to the donation. The chair recognizes Ron Reifenbach.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And if the city attorney could just give us a explanation of where this is.
If you wouldn't mind, I can certainly jump into this.
Absolutely.
Yeah. This is property that's up on the north side of Signal Hill. So you can see it from downtown. It's that whole hillside up there. It's just shy of 15 acres. It's just below where all the residential areas up on the top of Star Village, I used to call it, but Signal Hill. This property would be adjacent to an additional 12 and a half acres that the city already owns up there where the water reservoir is located. So it would in effect create kind of a large area up there of city-owned property. The intent for this gifted property would be to have a pedestrian and perhaps bicycle trails and just look out. It'd be all passive use of the site. The views from up there to the downtown are really spectacular, and it's an awfully generous donation.
Thank you.
Chair recognizes Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to make a motion to approve this, and if I get a second, I'll retain the floor.
Motion by Nordstrom, second by Solomon.
Thank you. I've been working with West Dakota Development, the West Dakota Water Development District folks to do, and I do have a representative in the audience if you have any questions for West Dakota, but I think this is a project that we've been working on. I've been assisting them, and they've been doing all the work. And now we have this opportunity to get this property donated to the city. So I feel it's a good worthwhile project to undertake. And there are some issues. There is going to be some issues that we'll have to contend with. But I think it's perhaps in the area of somebody will be able to figure out how to handle it. So I look to the Parks Department if they've got any other concerns that's already well known about that property up there. So I think we can handle it. Thank you.
Well, I think it's interesting that we have to talk about a donation, but when you accept a donation of anything in the city, from land to artwork to whatever it is, that means you accept it in perpetuity, and it's your responsibility forever. So I think that's something you have to really look into. You have to think about it. Is this something we really want to do? In this case, I agree with it. And it's called Signal Heights because I lived there as a young military brat. And so It's a really fabulous thing that they're doing, and it's a very historical area as well. So I'm happy to see this donation, and I thank the Wagners for working with the city on this. We have a motion to approve. All in favor? And all opposed? Motion passes. Okay, we go to 16 to approve the lease agreement from the Security First Bank for 5430 Sheridan Lake Road. That's continued from the 2016-2022 Legal and Finance meeting. And we're going to jump to Jason Solomon.
Thanks, Madam Chair. First, I make a motion to approve. If I can get a second and direct a question to our city attorney.
Motion by Solomon, second by Weifenbach. Go ahead, Jason.
Director Landine, would you mind just briefly sharing why this was continued and what was resolved?
Well, is this the, I'm
The
sorry.
lease for the new police precinct.
Yeah.
There was just some question. They needed it for a period of time. So we wanted to get the transfer done and then leasing back, or they wanted to wait to transfer the title. So it was just trying to coordinate it between when the title was going to be transferred and the use that was needed. So we're going to lease it back to them, but then we can transfer the title until their new facility up on top of the hill is completed.
For the sake of clarity, we hold the title and we lease it back to them until their project's complete.
Correct. And the police were involved in that discussion and they were fine with it. So
Just want to make sure that's out there. Thank you.
Seeing no other lights, we have a motion to approve. All in favor? Aye. Those opposed, 16 is approved. Go to non-consent items. We're doing this a little different, but I think I've learned a lot from this different process. We have public comments opened on items 17 and 19. I have no slips. Public comment is now closed. We'll go to the Finance Department, introduction, first reading of ordinance 6533 regarding supplemental appropriation number 1 for 2022, and we'll go to Director Sumption.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this supplement includes money for transportation planning that is carried over for contracts that they have in place. It also includes budgeting for the Vision Fund projects that you allocated at the January meeting for 2022. Then there are a couple that are just shifting money between line items, and then the final one is to increase the water replacement budget for that 1.2 million plus for the Hawthorne drainage ditch water rights.
Sounds good. Motion? Motion approved by Nordstrom, second by Weifenbach. All in favor? Thank you for the explanation, Pauline Sumption. Next up to community development. And we go to Vicki Fisher, who is going to talk to us about this. So go ahead, Vicki, take a swing at this. It's kind of long, and I'm not going to read all this.
And you don't have to. Madam Chair, this is a historic review for the Block 5 project in association with item number 14 previously on the agenda. As you did for item 14, the applicant's requesting that this get continued to your March 30th Legal and Finance Committee meeting, and that would be our recommendation.
Move to continue by Nordstrom, second by Solomon. All in favor? Aye. Thank you. And thank you, Director Fisher. Addendum 1, I can't get anything to open. What is this? Could someone please?
Nothing.
Yeah.
That's the December 21 sales tax report. We talked about it, the November one, the last time. This one shows a 19.01% increase over 2020 numbers, which equates to about $5.7 million in the general fund alone.
Well, that's good news. Let's, Jason Solomon.
Madam Chair, first I make a motion to acknowledge. If I can get a second. I retain.
Motion acknowledged by Solomon, second by Weifenbach.
And that's awesome to hear. I always like to put this out there. You look at the revenue side, the incomes are good. Expenses also go up. So as great as it is, and we talked about this last time, but I think it's just for the public reminder that even though it was a good year on income, we should also understand that the expenses due to inflation and everything else like everybody else is experiencing also impacts the city as well. So we need to make sure we keep that in mind as we move forward.
So no big parties and that kind of stuff, Jason, so.
No, ma'am. Well, you can party if you want to.
If I want to. Okay, well, thank you for your comments, Councilman Solomon. We've done a good job with that. Do I need to acknowledge that? We did that already? Okay. Aye, okay. And it is approved. No, I've got one thing to say before we adjourn, excuse me. Sometimes in life, you are doing a job and something happens and it changes your opinion or your general emotional state before you come in. Right before I came in today, I found out my father, who was supposed to get physical therapy in one of our local nursing homes every day for an hour and a half, didn't get any of it. So I'm angry, and I'm sad for the people that are also not getting the treatment they deserve in our nursing homes. So sometimes those things affect the way that you can run a meeting, think about what's on your plate here. It happens to all of us. And I just wanted you to know that because I'm a little off right now. But I plan to look into what's happening and maybe even correct some of it. But yeah, we all have our problems. Things happen and set us off a little bit. And I hope I did a good enough job for you guys today. But yeah, I was not really concentrating on a lot of things that happened here. So thank you for your patience and your time. And I look for adjournment.
Move to adjourn.
Adjourned by Weifenbach, second by Nordstrom. All in favor. We're adjourned.